During the will announcement, my in-laws handed every grandchild an envelope, except my 8-year-old. "We've decided you don't count as family," my mother-in-law said in front of everyone. My daughter froze. We didn't shout. We acted. 3 days later, their lawyer called and they went pale. The room had been too quiet even before the envelopes came out. Not respectful quiet, not ceremonial quiet, tense quiet, hostile quiet, the kind of quiet where everyone knows something ugly is about to happen except the one person it's going to hit hardest. Paula, my daughter, my 8-year-old who still believes grown-ups mean what they say, bounced in her chair, excited, completely unaware that her place in this family was about to be publicly erased. My husband, Adam, sat beside her, watching his parents with the same wary calm he always had around them, like someone handling unstable chemicals and praying today wouldn't be the day something exploded. His mother, Susan, stood at the head of the long dining table, hands folded. His father, Norman, sat stiffly beside her, wearing his usual expression of, "I'm judging everyone here, and also the furniture." Adam's sister, Sabrina, perched on a chair like she was waiting for her spotlight. His older brother, Sean, was pretending not to be uncomfortable. Even Tina, Adam's ex, was here, with their teenage son Owen slouched beside her, visibly bored. And then there was Paula, my sweet, hopeful little girl, practically glowing. Because to her, this wasn't a family legacy ceremony or a will announcement. It was a day where she got to be with cousins, hear nice things, and feel included. She'd even worn her favorite yellow dress. Because yellow is happy, Mommy. I wished I could have wrapped her in armor. Susan cleared her throat. "Now that everyone's here," she said, smiling the kind of smile that never reached her eyes, "we'd like to begin." A small stack of envelopes sat in front of her. 2 types. Large cream envelopes for the adults, colorful decorated envelopes for the kids. The children were supposed to open theirs out loud, the cute kid version, filled with sentimental notes, old photos, and "we love you so much" messages. The adults were told to read theirs privately at home. It was all very performative. Very Susan. The first child was called forward. She opened her little envelope, giggled, read out a message about how she was Grandma's sunshine and Grandpa's pride. And everyone clapped politely. Then the next child, and the next, and the next. Every kid had their moment, except mine. Paula sat up straighter every time Susan reached for another envelope. Her smile got wider. She kept brushing her dress flat, making sure she was ready. And then Susan skipped her, right over her, like Paula wasn't even sitting there. She handed an envelope to the next cousin, and the next. My daughter's smile wavered, but she stayed hopeful. Because she is 8, and 8-year-olds believe in fairness the way they believe in gravity. Eventually, every cousin had opened their envelope. Every child had heard their loving message. And Paula sat with empty hands. Finally, Susan turned to her. Soft voice, soft smile. The kind of softness people use right before pulling the rug out from under you. "Oh, honey," she cooed. "I know you've been waiting." Paula beamed, for a heartbeat. Then Susan added, still in that syrupy tone, "We've talked about this a lot, and we hope you understand. But we've decided you don't count as family." The words dropped like a guillotine. Paula stopped breathing. Her hands curled into her dress. She stared at Susan like she'd been slapped, but wasn't sure why. My chest burned. My brain went silent. Norman nodded stiffly, as if Susan had just delivered a weather report. Sabrina shifted uncomfortably. Sean looked down at his shoes. Tina sucked in a breath. Even Owen muttered, "What the hell?" But nobody said anything to stop it. Nobody. Paula finally whispered. Did I do something wrong? That sound, that tiny shaking sound, will haunt me forever. Adam straightened slowly. He didn't yell, didn't ask why, didn't even blink. He just said quietly, "Where's her envelope?" Susan brightened, as if she'd been waiting for that line. "Oh, Adam, you still get yours," she said, picking up a cream-colored envelope and holding it out like it was a prize. "Your family." My stomach flipped. He didn't take it right away. "Just me?" he asked. "Not Paula." A long, awful beat. Susan sighed, trying to soften the blow. "Well, she's lovely, dear. Truly. But it's different. We're sure you understand." He didn't. He really didn't. But he reached out, slowly, and took the envelope. Paula watched his hand like it was deciding her fate. Adam stared at the envelope, then at her. He didn't open it, didn't even look tempted. Instead, he walked back to the table and set the envelope down, flat, deliberate, final. Then he turned to Susan and Norman and said, voice steady enough to shake the walls, "If my daughter isn't your family, then neither am I." A ripple went through the room. Susan gasped. Norman scoffed. Sabrina froze. Sean whispered, "Holy crap." Tina's eyebrows shot up. Owen looked impressed for the first time in his life. Adam reached for Paula's hand. "Let's go," he said. I stood, took her other hand, and the three of us walked out. No yelling, no theatrics, just a clean, brutal exit. If you told me years ago that I'd one day sit through a will ceremony where my daughter would be publicly erased, I'd probably laugh the kind of laugh that means I'm in danger. Because nothing with Adam's family was ever normal. Not dramatic, not explosive, just off. Off enough that when the disaster finally came, I could trace the cracks all the way back to the day I met him. Adam was 25 when we met. Kind, quiet, handsome in that unpolished way where you can still see the boy he used to be. And unlike every man I had dated before, he didn't collect red flags like trading cards. He collected soft smiles, long silences, and genuine effort. There was one complication, though. He already had a son. Owen was 6 when I met him. Wide eyes, endless questions, and a habit of telling strangers highly personal facts about his father. "My dad cries at Pixar movies," was the first thing he said to me. Owen's mother, Tina, had been a teenage girlfriend. One of those, we were kids who thought we were adults stories. They co-parented without drama, and honestly, I admired it. I came into their lives slowly, carefully, respectfully. And before I knew it, I loved Owen too. 2 days a week love at first, then family love. The kind that sneaks up on you until you can't remember life before it. That's around when Adam and I started trying for a baby. Trying became tracking. Tracking became timing. Timing became an emotional marathon I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Month after month, nothing. And the pressure wasn't just biology, it was his family. Adam came from a big one. Parents, siblings, cousins, the whole clan. And they were loud, opinionated, and competitive about everything. They treated family life like a performance. Babies? Perform. Weddings? Perform. Holiday dinners? Full Broadway production. And under every scene, the same whispered reminder. This family has history. Legacy. Old money roots. Not Bentley rich, just the kind of rich where everyone is sure there's a big inheritance somewhere upstream. Some trust no one really understands, but everyone assumes will eventually trickle down. Not to Adam, not yet. Just rumors, heavy, entitled, poisonous. Then one day, after 2 years of infertility and heartbreak, I sat in a doctor's office with the kind of dread that eats through bone. The doctor was gentle. The news wasn't. My body wasn't going to cooperate. Not without medical miracles. Not without grief. Adam held my hand, squeezed once, and whispered, "Okay." But that kind of okay stretches thin. It pressed on both of us, especially him, because he'd already lived the parenting beginnings with someone else, and he wanted to experience everything with me too. We talked about adoption. Actually, we didn't just talk. We circled it, analyzed it, held it up to the light, and examined all the ways it could save us or break us. What finally tipped us? His grandmother. Adam's grandmother had been adopted, and everyone in the family said she was the heart of the bloodline, even though she shared none of their DNA. She'd built the family's values, wealth, reputation. She was the source of those old money whispers. She once said, according to Adam's mom, "If you raise a child, they're yours. Full stop." That line became our North Star. So we began the adoption process. If infertility is a marathon, adoption is a labyrinth. Paperwork, interviews, more paperwork, waiting, hoping, more waiting. And then we met her, Paula, 3 years old, soft curls, wide eyes, a laugh so bright it could cut through winter. We fell in love on sight. We brought her home. She called us mommy and daddy within weeks. And she became Owen's little shadow, following him everywhere like a devoted sidekick. But family, real family, comes with shadows too. At first, Adam's parents fawned over her the way people do over any cute toddler. But as she got older, the warmth cooled into something tight and polite. After visits to their house, Paula clung to us and asked if she was really part of the family. Adam kept saying they just needed time. They'd already had years. That's why, when the invitation arrived for the family will announcement, Paula lit up like Christmas morning. She thought it meant belonging, recognition, confirmation. She couldn't remember life before us, but she knew what it felt like to be the odd one out. She was 8, old enough to see patterns, young enough to still hope. And that was the part that got me. The way her whole face lit up when we told her Adam's parents were hosting a family gathering. She thought it meant games, pictures, maybe even a chance to feel like all the cousins finally saw her the same way she saw them. I didn't correct her. I didn't warn her. I just prayed I wasn't walking her straight into something I wouldn't be able to undo. I was wrong. If silence had a flavor, that drive home tasted like metal. Paula sat in the back seat, seatbelt tight across her tiny chest, staring straight ahead. Not crying, not speaking, just holding herself together the way only an 8-year-old who's been humiliated in public can. Adam kept both hands on the wheel, white-knuckled, jaw locked, breathing like someone trying not to punch the airbag. I kept twisting around to check on her, but she didn't look at me. Not once. When we stepped inside our house, Paula stopped just past the doorway and stood there, small and stiff, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to move anymore. My heart cracked all over again. "Sweetie," I said gently, "come sit with us." We settled on the couch, Adam on one side, me on the other. Paula folded between us like she didn't want to take up space. After a long moment, she whispered, Did you lose money because of me?" That one hit me so hard I actually flinched. Adam blinked like he'd been slapped. "What?" he said softly. "Where did you get that idea?" "You left your envelope," she murmured. "Everyone got something. And I didn't. So maybe you lost yours too. Because of me." The way she said "because of me," I swear something ancient and primal woke up in me. Adam leaned down until he was eye level with her. Paula, he said, voice steady, listen carefully. I didn't lose anything because of you. I chose to walk away because I'm your father, because you're my family. If they don't see that, then I don't want anything from them. Not a cent, not a scrap. Paula's chin wobbled. Her eyes flooded. She didn't cry. She just crawled into his arms, wrapped herself around him, and held on like he was the only solid thing left in the universe. And Adam held her the same way. After she finally went to her room, we stood outside her door for a minute, both of us listening to her soft, exhausted breathing. Adam exhaled shakily. I keep thinking about what I just gave up, he said quietly. I'm not sure I even understand the size of it. No, I cut in. You didn't walk away from money. You walked away from people who told our daughter she wasn't family. That's not security. That's poison. He nodded once, slowly, the worry still sitting in his shoulders. We went to the living room, sat on opposite ends of the couch the way people do when they're too wired to relax but too drained to stand. Then Adam said the sentence that changed everything. Actually, I don't even know if they can exclude her. I looked up. What do you mean? Their whole inheritance isn't technically theirs, he said. A lot of it is from my grandmother's trust. She set it up years ago. Multi-generational. Structured. She was adopted, remember? She would have never made a distinction between biological or adopted grandchildren, and trusts aren't like normal inheritance. There are rules. My pulse kicked up. Do you have the documents? I asked. He shook his head. No, they kept everything. I've never seen the trust paperwork. Then we need a lawyer, I said. ASAP. The next morning, we sat across from Ms. Daly, a calm, steel-spined attorney with the kind of expression that suggested she'd seen 3 divorces, 2 fraud cases, and several midlife crises before her first coffee. When Adam explained what happened, she didn't blink. You're a beneficiary, she said. Legally, you're entitled to full documentation of the trust. They can't hide it from you. So we can get the papers? I asked. We can demand the papers, she corrected. She drafted the request, notarized it, and sent it that same afternoon. And that's when the storm hit. By the next morning, the letter had been delivered. And less than an hour after that, Adam's phone rang. His parents' number lit up the screen like a warning flare. He answered on speaker. Norman's voice exploded through the phone. How dare you send a lawyer after us? You humiliated us in front of everyone, Susan shrieked. And now you want the money? After walking out? Adam didn't raise his voice. He didn't apologize. He didn't justify. He simply said, I want what my grandmother intended. Nothing more. Nothing less. You don't deserve it, Susan snapped. Not after abandoning your family for that girl. Adam hung up. Just hung up. No speech. No anger. Just a clean, lethal click. 3 days later, Ms. Daly called. They sent over the trust packet, she said. You'll want to see this in person. We didn't talk much on the drive. There wasn't anything to say. Every nerve in my body felt like a lit fuse. Ms. Daly's office was quiet. The expensive, soundproof kind of quiet. She closed the door behind us, sat, and pulled a thick binder onto the desk. Plastic sleeves, aged paper, wax seals, signatures from people long gone. Here, she said, flipping to a tab marked in fading ink. We leaned in. There it was. Grandchildren shall each receive equal shares. Not biological grandchildren, not bloodline grandchildren, just grandchildren. Adam exhaled like someone had been sitting on his lungs. So, Paula, counts, he murmured. Ms. Daly nodded. Legally, yes. She turned another page, scanning, her eyebrows pinched. Hold on, she said softly. There's a notation here. She slid the binder toward us and tapped a line handwritten in the margin. Older ink, familiar handwriting. For avoidance of doubt, grandchildren includes all legally adopted descendants. A chill crawled up my spine. That's, Adam whispered, my grandmother's handwriting. Ms. Daly nodded again. She was very explicit, which makes what they did curious. Curious. That word carried weight. Too much weight. I asked, is that enough to file? In theory, yes, she said. But I want to examine the rest before we act. This trust is large, complex, and she stopped. Her finger hovered over a different section. Then she looked up at Adam, slowly. Adam, did your parents ever transfer any trust distributions to you? At any age? He blinked. No. Why? She tapped the page again. Because according to this, you were supposed to receive a distribution at 18 and another at 25. My pulse spiked. And I'm guessing, she continued gently, you never saw a cent. He shook his head. Once. Stunned. Ms. Daly shut the binder carefully. Not dramatically. Carefully. Like someone closing a file labeled danger. There may be more here, she said. A lot more. I need to run a deeper analysis before I tell you anything certain. A cold ripple went down my arms. What does more mean? I asked. It means, she said, folding her hands, that what happened to Paula may only be the tip of the iceberg. The office felt smaller, tighter. Adam swallowed. So, what do we do now? Ms. Daly pushed a short form across the desk. For now, you authorize me to request the full accounting, quietly, formally, before they realize what we've found. I looked at Adam. He looked at me. There was fear in his eyes, yes, but something else too. Resolve. Fatherhood. A different kind of inheritance. Do it, I said. We signed. Ink on paper. Fast, final. Irreversible. Ms. Daly gathered the binder. I'll be in touch as soon as I have the full picture. She paused. And Nadine? Yes? Prepare yourselves. Whatever's under this surface. People don't hide things unless the truth is worse. We stepped out into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind us. Adam exhaled shakily. That didn't sound good. It wasn't meant to, I said. We walked toward the elevator, the fluorescent lights humming above us. I could feel it. Something shifting under our feet. Something big. Bigger than Paula's envelope. Bigger than the insult. Bigger than anything that had already blown up. Whatever was coming. We hadn't even seen the first crack. Days went by without a word from them. Paula colored at the table but jumped at every car outside. Adam and I flinched at every buzz on our phones. By the third evening, he muttered, "They're coordinating. I know that silence." He was right. The knock came the next morning. Not loud, not frantic, just firm, like someone tapping with the certainty of we belong inside. Adam opened the door. Susan and Norman stood there wearing their fake church potluck smiles. Norman held a tin of cookies. Susan held her dignity like it was a fragile ornament. "Adam, sweetheart," she said in a tone that implied nothing had happened. "We'd really love to talk." Sweetheart. I nearly snorted. We let them in, mostly because shock is a physical force. They sat on our couch like they were hosting us. "We've been thinking," Norman began, as if delivering a quarterly report. "About the envelopes. About the misunderstanding." There it was. The word people use when they don't want to say cruelty. Susan leaned forward. "We truly want to make things right. We want Paula to feel included." My spine tightened. Adam didn't respond. He simply waited, dangerously calm. We realized, Susan continued, that we may have acted too quickly. We didn't have enough time to bond with her. Her smile wobbled. But of course she's part of the future distribution. Translation: we regret getting caught. And, Norman added, we're willing to advance your portion early. A gesture of goodwill. There it was, the bribe wrapped in buttercream. Adam finally spoke. Quiet. Precise. You want us to withdraw the legal request? Susan's smile cracked. Norman's jaw twitched. We just don't think lawyers are necessary, she said. It would be unpleasant for everyone. Translation: stop digging before you find the bodies. Adam looked at them. Really looked. You're not sorry, he said. You're scared. Silence fell so hard the room seemed to tilt. You're not doing this because of Paula, he went on. You're doing this because you know there's something in that trust you don't want anyone to see. Their faces twitched. Guilt, fear, outrage, all fighting for space. That's outrageous, Norman snapped. We've managed that estate responsibly for decades. Then, Adam said, standing, you shouldn't mind the lawyer finishing her review. That was it. Politeness shattered. This is disgusting, Susan hissed. Going after your own parents. You went after my child, Adam said calmly. He opened the door. They left with sputtering insults and wounded pride hanging off them like wet laundry. Adam locked the door, checked it twice, pressed his forehead against the frame. I touched his back. You okay? He exhaled like someone finally understanding the weight he'd carried his entire life. I'm done letting them decide who counts. The lawyer didn't call the next day, or the next. Real investigations take time, the kind of time that stretches nerves like piano wire. Paula slowly uncurled. She played, drew, smiled more. Every night she asked, are they coming back? Every night we told her no. Every night she held that answer like it was a new kind of safety. Meanwhile, emails trickled in from Ms. Daly. A note here, a discrepancy there, then something larger, then something that made my stomach drop. By week 3, she asked us to come in. We sat in her office, Paula in the corner with crayons, Adam with both feet planted like he expected a courtroom ambush, and Ms. Daly slid a folder toward us. You were right to question them, she said. Not just about Paula, about everything. My pulse kicked. The trust wasn't theirs to shape, she continued. And they've been shaping it anyway. She flipped pages. Missing distributions, redirected funds, expenses disguised as maintenance, unearned withdrawals, discrepancies so old they had dust on them. And this, she said, tapping a highlighted section, is where it gets worse. Ms. Daly didn't flip the page dramatically. She just rotated the folder so we could see the figures ourselves. Adam inhaled sharply, because this section wasn't about Paula, or us, or envelopes. It was about money, a lot of money. Ms. Daly tapped again. This, she said carefully, is a ledger of distributions your grandmother intended for all her grandchildren. All? Adam echoed. Yes, she said. Every child of every branch. Equally. She paused. And according to the trust, each distribution was supposed to happen on a set schedule. She slid her pen down the column. Age 18, age 25. Milestones, amounts, dates. Everywhere Adam's name should have appeared, empty, completely empty. My stomach dropped. And, Ms. Daly continued, they weren't just withholding Adam's distributions. She turned another page. Your brother should have received his at 18. Turned another. Your sister as well. turned another. And these three, she pointed, belong to the grandchildren from Sean's side. Adam stared. A muscle in his jaw twitched. You're saying, he said slowly, they didn't pay anyone? Not a single one, Ms. Daly replied. For over 20 years. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Where did the money go? Ms. Daly's mouth tightened into something that wasn't quite a smile. That, she said, is the part they are going to hate the most. She tapped the totals column, not the amounts. She covered those with her hand, but Adam saw enough of the digits to go pale. His throat bobbed. That number can't be right, he whispered. It's right, she said, and it's only preliminary. I gripped Adam's arm. And you're telling us, I said carefully, that all of this, and all of it, was supposed to go to her descendants? Yes, Ms. Daly said. Every one of them, Paula included. Silence. Not shocked silence, not outraged silence. The kind of silence where the ground shifts under your feet and you suddenly understand why someone showed up with a tin of cookies begging for mercy. Ms. Daly folded her hands. This is no longer just about an exclusion, she said. This is a pattern, a long-term breach of fiduciary duty, potentially fraud. They will almost certainly lose their position as trustees once the court sees this. Adam rubbed his face with both hands. Jesus Christ! Ms. Daly's tone softened. I know this is a lot, but we proceed carefully, quietly. We request a full accounting. We document everything. And when this reaches court, she paused. The trust will be corrected. And the beneficiaries, and all of them, will finally get what they should have received years ago. 6 months later, life feels like a house with all the rotten beams finally ripped out. We're still no contact. Paula sleeps easier. Adam breathes easier. And the truth, once buried under decades of manipulation, now sits in the light where it belongs. When the audit finished, the fallout was nuclear. Adam's siblings were the first to call, stunned and furious. For years, every gift Susan and Norman bragged about giving had actually come from the family trust, and they'd quietly pocketed the majority of what each grandchild was supposed to receive. Mandatory distributions were disguised as generosity. Everyone had been shorted, not just Paula. The court's ruling was brutal and clean. The original family trust was dissolved. Individual sub-trusts were created for each grandchild. Adam was named trustee for Paula's sub-trust. The other siblings became trustees for their own children. Then came the accounting. Adam's share, approximately $746,000, now fully paid out. Paula's new trust should have held around $472,000. It had $181,000, the missing money spent by Susan and Norman. And Paula wasn't the only grandchild whose trust came up short. So the court ordered the only thing fair. Every spare dollar of Susan and Norman's pension is now garnished and divided across all the grandchildren's trusts, including Paula's, until the shortfalls are repaid. They sold their house, downsized to a tiny rental, and every month the family members they mistreated receive what was owed all along. As for us, we're finally free. So what do you think? Did we go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. At Christmas, my in-laws set a huge table for 24 guests, then told my 7-year-old to eat alone in the kitchen. They tossed her a cheap plastic fork and said, "We can't squeeze everyone in." When I found out, I didn't shout. I did this. 6 hours later, they regretted everything. If motherhood gives you one superpower, it's the ability to spot when your child is lying through a smile. My daughter Lily wasn't smiling when I walked through the door after my shift, but her shoulders had that brittle, "I'm fine, mommy" stiffness kids use when they're barely holding it together. Instant stomach flip, instant dread. My husband, Mark, and Lily were already home. Early, much earlier than they should have been, considering Christmas dinner at my in-laws' place, Linda and Frank's, was supposed to be an all-evening circus. Instead of festive chaos and leftovers, I walked into my living room and found Mark on the couch, staring at the TV with the emotional energy of a boiled potato. Lily curled into the armchair, tiny and silent, like she was trying to make herself invisible. 2 red flags, waving, in stereo. "Hey," I said lightly, like my heart wasn't already speeding. "How was it?" Mark shrugged without taking his eyes off the screen. The classic, "please don't ask me anything" shrug of a man hoping his wife will drop a nuclear topic on her own. Lily whispered, "It was okay." "Nope. Lie number 1. I knelt in front of her. "Did you eat?" A pause. A too long pause. She said, eyes glued to her knees. "Lie number 2. My chest tightened. "Lily," I whispered, "look at me." Her chin trembled. Just once, like a crack running through glass. "Mommy!" Her voice broke. And then the dam burst. She sobbed so hard she folded into my arms like she'd been holding herself together for hours. Because she had. Her little body shook against my chest. Mark still didn't move. "What happened?" I asked, smoothing her hair. They said there wasn't space for me," she cried. "At the big table." My brain stalled. "What?" "Grandma Linda said they couldn't squeeze everyone in." She hiccuped. "So she told me to sit in the kitchen." The kitchen. The kitchen. My pulse slammed in my ears. "They gave me a plastic fork," she whispered, like the detail itself hurt. "A cheap one. It was dirty at the bottom." Dirty. I closed my eyes for a second because the alternatives were screaming, exploding, finding Linda, and committing an actual felony. "And you sat alone?" I managed. She nodded into my shoulder. "There were 24 chairs," she sobbed. "I counted. There were 3 empty ones." That did it. Something cold and sharp slid into place in my chest. I looked over at Mark. "Is this true?" My voice barely made it out. He froze, then sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "Julia, I mean, it wasn't like that." "Really?" I said. "You think a 7-year-old would make this up?" "No, but listen, it was awkward, okay? My mom felt strongly about the seating. The table was already set, and you left your daughter in the kitchen." He winced. "I didn't leave her. There was no room." 24 chairs, I said. 3 empty. He rubbed his face. "I didn't want to make a scene." "You didn't want to make a scene," I repeated slowly. "So you sat there eating ham while our daughter sat alone with a filthy plastic fork." "She had food," he muttered. "Mark." He shut up. Lily's crying softened into little shivers. I carried her to her room, tucked her under her blankets, kissed her forehead. By the time I came back to the living room, Mark was standing, rubbing his neck like he was the victim here. "I just don't understand why you're so upset," he said. "It's not like they hurt her." Oh, that was interesting. "Not like they hurt her?" I asked, voice sweet in the way sugar burns. "She cried herself breathless, Mark." He opened his mouth, probably to say something catastrophically stupid, and I held up a hand. "No, I'm done listening to excuses." He shut his mouth. I walked past him. "You're being dramatic," he muttered behind me. I stopped, turned slowly. Mark has never seen me angry. Not the quiet kind. Not the kind where your blood becomes metal. "Tell me," I said, "exactly what part of your daughter eating alone in a kitchen qualifies as me being dramatic?" He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. I didn't shout, didn't slam anything. Didn't cry. I just sat down at my computer, because when you've spent years biting your tongue, something inside you eventually snaps. Not loudly, not violently, but with the dangerous softness of a trap closing. Mark hovered in the doorway. "Julia, what are you doing?" I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. "I'm fixing it," I said. He shifted, nervous. "What does that mean?" "You'll see." He swallowed. "Julia, don't start anything." I typed anyway. Quiet, steady, cold. Sometimes silence is louder than screaming. Hours passed. The house slept. And while Mark lay in bed pretending not to think about what he'd done, I sat in the glow of my laptop, building something he'd never expect. When I finally shut the screen, my hands were steady. My heartbeat was not. Because I knew something he didn't. 6 hours later, they regretted everything. And that was only the beginning. If you'd told me years ago that my biggest adult flaw would be giving people the benefit of the doubt, I probably would have laughed. Dryly. You know, the kind of laugh you make when you think you're kind, but actually you're just letting people walk across your spine in stilettos. Because that's exactly how I ended up married to Mark. I didn't fall in love with some walking red flag. No, I fell in love with the opposite. A man so soft, so gentle, so genuinely kind that it felt like landing in a warm bed after years of sitting on emotional concrete. The only problem? Soft men make great partners, but they make terrible shields against their own families. I learned that the slow way, like boiling alive but only realizing once the water starts bubbling. Mark told me early, very casually, that his parents, Linda and Frank, were intense. Intense turned out to be code for stubborn, guilt-wielding, allergic to boundaries, obsessed with hierarchy, and convinced Tiffany, their daughter, was the second coming of royalty. Meanwhile, Mark? He was the household intern. Every time he told childhood stories, the pattern was obvious. Tiffany got the praise. Tiffany got the attention. Tiffany got the new clothes, the birthday trips, the support, the spotlight. Mark got, well, be grateful for what you have. Honestly, at the beginning, I thought he was exaggerating. Everyone has a dramatic sibling story, right? Then Lily was born. That's when I realized he wasn't exaggerating. He'd actually been pulling his punches. The first time we brought Lily over as a baby, Tiffany swooped in with her 3 children like a flock of pastel-colored birds, loud, shiny, impossible to ignore. Linda and Frank practically levitated with excitement. Oh, look at them! So smart! So talented! Such beautiful manners! Compliment after compliment after compliment, like they were hosting royalty. And then someone would finally glance down at Lily, tiny, perfect, blinking up at them from her car seat, and say, "Oh, and there's Lily too. Two, two, two," like she was an afterthought, a footnote, a bonus feature no one asked for. I learned quickly that there were tiers in this family. Tier 1, Tiffany's children, adored, cherished, praised. Tier 2, Tiffany, divine matriarch in training. Tier 3, Mark, reliable background character. Tier 4, Lily, tolerated accessory. Tier 5, me, the woman who corrupted Tier 3. Was it subtle? Yes. Was it consistent? Absolutely. Was I in denial about it? For longer than I care to admit. Then the money started. At first, it was small, Mark sending his parents a couple hundred here and there because they're in a tight spot. I didn't love it, but okay. Families help each other. But then it was monthly, a commitment, a duty, according to Linda. They're getting older, Mark would say. If I don't help them, who will? I wanted to say, maybe the daughter they worship like the Virgin Mary, but I didn't. I swallowed it. We were both working good jobs at the time. It felt like a battle not worth fighting. Then Mark lost his job. No warning, just a layoff email and a cardboard box on his desk. Suddenly, the duty became my duty, because guess whose salary started covering the joint account? Guess whose money paid our rent, groceries, insurance? And oh yeah, Linda and Frank's mortgage. Mine. All of it. And still, they treated Lily like someone's neighbor's kid who happened to show up. At Paisley's birthday last year, Linda gave her a $300 art set. She gave Lily a scented eraser. "That's more age-appropriate," she'd said. Lily was 6. And Mark, sweet, soft, useless in conflict Mark, never noticed. Or pretended not to. Whenever I pointed something out, he'd give the same tired answer. They mean well. If I had $1 for every time he said that, I could have bought Linda and Frank's house myself and kicked them out. But I kept quiet. I let peace win, or at least I told myself it was peace. Really, it was self-betrayal. Then came the Christmas contribution. Linda made a whole speech in the family group chat about how hosting is expensive and everyone should contribute, and fairness is important. Fairness. Cute. I transferred $80 from the joint account without a fight because I thought Lily would get a magical night with her cousins. Instead, she got a plastic fork in the kitchen. And while I held my daughter sobbing in my arms, it felt like a curtain ripped in my mind. Every ignored instinct, every subtle cruelty, every swallowed comment, they all came back. Hard. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room replaying everything. Paisley's expensive gifts, Lily's eraser, the favoritism, the excuses, the mortgage payments, the joint account, the humiliation, all of it. It wasn't random. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the pattern, the truth I'd been too polite to acknowledge. I felt something cold settle in me, something certain, something final. For years, I stayed quiet. But that night, something broke inside me. And none of them, not Mark, not Linda, not Frank, had any idea what I was about to do. They'd find out soon enough. If you've ever wanted to understand the exact moment a woman stops being nice, watch her stare at her child sleeping after a day like the one Lily had. It was midnight by the time I finally sat down at my computer. Not angry, not hysterical, not dramatic, just done. Done funding Linda and Frank's lifestyle. Done letting Mark pretend he was helping when every dollar came from me. Done playing the polite daughter-in-law while my child cried herself sick because she wasn't squeezable enough for their Christmas table. So I opened the joint account. Empty. Within seconds. It was my money anyway. Every penny of it. Mark hadn't contributed in months, and the only thing he had contributed to that account was guilt and excuses. Then I moved on to the next step. Cancel. 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 Mortgage support to Linda and Frank? Canceled. Monthly family assistance? Canceled. Their little automatic utilities top-up transfer Mark set up behind my back? Oh, definitely canceled. Then I rerouted all our household bills to my personal account. Groceries, rent, internet, all handled directly by me from now on. The joint account was officially nothing more than an empty box with Mark's name on it. After that, I sent a message to Linda and Frank. A short one. The kind of message that sounds calm until you realize what it really means. Please refund the $40 I paid for Lily's Christmas seat, since she wasn't given one. No emojis. No explanation. No softening. Send. Done. By the time I shut the laptop, something in my chest had changed again, the cold certainty sharpening into something almost peaceful. I slept well, which is probably why Mark's panic the next morning felt almost amusing. He burst into the bedroom like he'd discovered our house was on fire. "Julia, what did you do?" he demanded. I blinked at him. "Good morning." "My mom just called," he said, like this was supposed to terrify me. "She said you asked for $40 back." "Oh," I said. Yes, he sputtered. "Why would you? Julia, that's petty." "Is it?" I said. He ran both hands through his hair like he was preparing to negotiate with a terrorist. "It was one dinner. One. You're blowing this into what exactly?" I asked. "Into standing up for our daughter?" "That's not fair. I told you it was awkward. My mom had the table arranged a certain way, and Lily was the one who paid for it. She wasn't hurt," he snapped. I stared at him. He looked away first. "Julia," he said, quieter now. "Can't we just keep paying them until I get a job? I didn't know you were going to cut everything. My parents need help." "No," I said. "Absolutely not." He gaped at me like I'd spoken in ancient Greek. I stood, walked past him, picked up Lily's cereal bowl, put it in the sink. "Mark," I said calmly, "if you want to keep paying your parents, use your own money." "You know I don't have any," he said. "That is not my problem," I replied. "And I'm done pretending it is." His mouth fell open, closed, opened again. "You're going to bankrupt them," he said, voice cracking. "No," I said. "They bankrupted themselves. I just stopped sponsoring the show." His cheeks flushed. "This is going to cause drama. And Lily sitting alone in the kitchen wasn't drama?" He had no answer to that. He grabbed his jacket, muttered something that sounded like "I need air," and stormed out. Fine. Let him get some air. The oxygen at home was meant for people who protected children, not people who folded like wet cardboard. I was halfway through folding laundry when my phone rang. Group call. From Linda. Frank. Tiffany. "Oh, good." The three hyenas, I answered because I wanted them to hear the calm in my voice. Linda started first, obviously. "Julia," she barked. "What is the meaning of this message you sent us?" "Hello to you too," I said. Frank's voice followed, loud and self-righteous. "You're asking for $40 back? For $40? "It's what I paid for Lily's seat at Christmas," I said politely, "which she didn't get." "That's ridiculous," Tiffany cut in. "It was just a different table." "In the kitchen," I said. "Oh my God," Linda groaned. "Are we really doing this? She sat in the kitchen for one meal. Kids sit in kitchens all the time." I almost admired the confidence. Almost. "And," Linda continued, "you didn't even come, so you don't get to criticize." "I had to work," I reminded her. "That's what you say," Tiffany shot back. Interesting. So now I was a liar too. Frank huffed. "And anyway, that money wasn't yours to ask for. It came from Mark." "No," I said. "It came from me." Silence. Actual silence. Then, "Oh," Tiffany said, her voice dripping with venom. "So that's why you're acting like you're better than us. Because you make more money." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "No," I said. "I'm acting like someone whose daughter cried herself to sleep because her own grandparents sent her to eat alone like a stray dog." Linda practically screeched. "You are overreacting." "You humiliated a 7-year-old, I said. "You gave everyone else a holiday dinner and gave her garbage and a plastic fork. Frank snapped. If you're going to be dramatic, maybe it's better if you don't come next year. Oh, I said softly. I won't. The line exploded with overlapping voices, accusations, insults, faux outrage. And then I hung up. I stared at my phone, breathing hard. Not because I was upset, because I was finally, beautifully, absolutely clear. They thought this was about $40. They truly believed I would roll over like Mark, apologize, keep paying, keep feeding their ego and their mortgage and their cozy little fantasy where Lily wasn't real family. They had no idea what I had already put into motion, no idea what the next few days would bring. But they would, soon. Very soon. And when it finally hit them, they would regret a lot more than $40. If the night after Christmas was the moment something snapped inside me, then the day after was when the world snapped back. I woke up to 3 missed calls, 9 texts, and a fresh hell in the family group chats. Not my family, of course. Mark's. Linda had transformed the chat into a public relations war zone. Linda. Some people can't handle one holiday without making drama. Frank. We all know who was petty enough to demand $40. Embarrassing. Tiffany. Not surprised Julia ruined Christmas. She didn't even show up. I hadn't shown up because I worked. But sure. Let's rewrite history. Someone's cousin chimed in with a vague, "Wait, what happened?" And that was all it took for Linda to unleash a novella. Apparently, I'm unstable, dramatic, jealous of Tiffany, disrespectful to the elders, and trying to paint the family as abusers because Lily sat on an auxiliary table. Auxiliary. They upgraded the kitchen to the Pentagon. Mark scrolled through the messages in dead silence, his eyes dull. He didn't defend me. He didn't defend Lily. He didn't do anything. And that hurt more than I expected. I didn't trust myself to speak, because the words I wanted to say were nuclear, and I didn't want Lily waking up to emotional shrapnel. So I did the one thing I do when I'm trying not to scream. I cleaned. I cleaned like I was trying to erase the entire house from existence. The kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom. I scrubbed the baseboards with a level of rage usually reserved for true crime documentaries. Eventually, my rage vacuum carried me into Mark's office. His office was a disaster zone. Papers everywhere, receipts balled up like confetti, old coffee cups that could have birthed new civilizations. I wasn't cleaning for him. God, no. I was cleaning because I needed something to focus on that wasn't smashing my phone. I started sorting the stacks of papers on his desk, muttering to myself like a feral raccoon. Maybe if he cleaned this room, he could find a job. Shuffle. Maybe if he had a functioning filing system, he'd have a spine. Shuffle. Maybe if his mother didn't own his... And then I froze. A thick, official envelope slid out from between 2 piles. The top corner read, County Property Records. My stomach dropped. I opened it. And that's when my world tilted sideways. It was a property deed. Mark's name was on it. And the address? The address was Tiffany's house. The house Tiffany lived in with her 3 children. The house Mark had always referred to as Tiffany's place. The house I had been in dozens of times without ever realizing it belonged to him. Well, to us. He inherited it after we married. Legally, that means half of it is mine. And he never told me. Not once. He just let Tiffany move in. Let her live there rent-free. Let her raise her kids there while we scraped to support his parents. Let her call it her house. I stared at his signature on the document so long the ink began to blur. When Mark finally came home, he hesitated in the doorway like he sensed the atmosphere had changed. "Julia," he said cautiously. I held up the deed. His face drained of color. He didn't even bother pretending. "I didn't hide it," he said too quickly. "Really?" I asked. What would you call this? He rubbed his forehead. Julia, listen. Tiffany has kids. She needed a place. My parents pressured me. It didn't feel right to take it from her. Mark, I said, you didn't take anything. It's your house. Well, yeah, technically, not technically, legally, and half of it belongs to me because we were married when you got it. He winced. You let your sister live in our property for free, and you let me pay your parents' mortgage, and you let me think we were struggling. He didn't answer. I didn't expect him to. We still took Lily out that afternoon. We'd promised her ice cream and the little indoor playground she loves, and I wasn't going to break a promise because of my crumbling marriage. We sat together at a booth, the three of us, pretending to be a normal family. Except Lily's trauma seeped through everything. Is it okay if I sit here? She whispered. Can I eat this? Am I allowed to go play? Is it okay if I stay with you? Every question was a stab. Mark watched her quietly, hands folded in his lap, eyes dim. It wasn't until he stepped away to order our food that the dam broke again, this time much softer. Mom? Lily whispered. Yeah, baby. Does Daddy like me? My heart cracked. What makes you ask that? I said, forcing my voice steady. She stared at the table. Because he didn't stand up for me. He sat with everyone else, and I thought... Her lips trembled. I thought if he loved me, he'd tell them no. I hugged her, tight. Your daddy loves you, I whispered. He just didn't know how to be brave. She nodded, trying to believe it. Then I saw Mark standing a few feet away, holding our food tray, his face pale and hollow. He'd heard every word. That night, after Lily fell asleep, he came into the living room. He stood there awkwardly, like a man preparing for surgery without anesthesia. You were right, he said quietly. I didn't respond. I didn't understand how much I hurt her. His voice shook. Or you. Still, I said nothing. He sat down. My parents did the same thing to me when I was a kid, he said. I used to sit at the kids' table by myself. Tiffany always got the good seat, the good food, the attention. I guess I thought that's just how families are. I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't making excuses anymore. He was remembering. He swallowed hard. I don't want Lily to grow up like I did, and I don't want you carrying everything because I'm scared to make waves. A long silence. Then, let's get the house back, he said, and I'll pay you back every cent. And I'm done with them, Julia. I mean it. For the first time in weeks, something in me unclenched. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Or maybe it was the moment the old thing finally cracked open enough to fix. Either way, the war with the in-laws wasn't over. It was just entering phase 2. And the next move? It wouldn't be theirs. It would be mine. 6 months later, I still have moments where I open my eyes in the morning and brace for impact. A text from Linda, a voicemail from Frank, a guilt trip from Tiffany. My nervous system was trained for war. But there's only silence now. Real silence. The kind that feels like oxygen after years of breathing smoke. The house Tiffany lived in? It's ours now. And yes, getting it back was every bit as ugly as you'd imagine. I stood in the hallway while Mark told his family the truth. He was reclaiming the property. Their screams carried through the phone like a stadium crowd losing a championship game. Tiffany cried so loudly I'm pretty sure the windows considered cracking out of self-defense. Linda accused us of destroying her daughter's future. Frank shouted something about betraying the family legacy, which was hilarious considering the only legacy he ever built was emotional dysfunction. And Mark? He didn't fold. He told me later that the thing that did it, The thing that kept him standing while his whole family tried to drag him back down was Lily's voice in his head. Does Daddy love me? That one sentence grew him a backbone faster than any therapist could have. Tiffany moved out eventually. We rent the house now, and the money goes straight into Lily's savings. A poetic full-circle moment that I enjoy more than I should. As for Linda and Frank, no contact, clean cut. They vanished the moment their ATM shut down. Sometimes distant relatives try to wade in, waving their neutrality flags. They ask what really happened. I tell them, a 7-year-old girl was forced to eat alone in a kitchen on Christmas because her grandparents didn't want her at the table. That usually ends the conversation. A few mutter that they don't want to get involved, which is funny because they already were, just not on our side. But the truth? I don't care. My family isn't a committee project. Mark has a steady job now. He comes home tired, not defeated, and every cent he earns goes into our home, our life, our daughter, not into Tiffany's lifestyle or his parents' mortgage. And Lily? She doesn't tiptoe anymore. She doesn't ask if she's allowed to sit somewhere. She doesn't wonder if her father loves her. She knows. For the first time, our home feels like ours, not an emotional extension of Linda and Frank's house. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.